Greetings, programs and users. It is time once again for another episode of Old Nerds Drinking. I am John Patrick, the Master Control Program, and here with me today we have a star-studded, or all-hands-on-deck episode. With me is Rojan.
Yo!
And also joining us is Jake.
Hey, I'm back.
He's back, folks.
It's been a while since...
it has been. I was thinking earlier, when was the last time we recorded all together? And I think it was Mandalorian Season 2 finale?
Got no room to talk. I'm still trying to fire my stuff back up, but you guys have been gone longer than I have.
Yeah, pretty much, at least a year. I think at least a year that Tom and I have been wrapping things up.
Yeah, and you know, we had a stretch there where we were getting episodes out on time, and then Thanksgiving happened, and so we're after a quick holiday sabbatical, we're gonna get back on the horse, and boy, have we got a lot of nerdy shit to talk about today.
A whole lot of horse to get on.
So much nerd shit. But as is tradition, because you know we do this almost every time we have an episode. Here's the people we're pouring one out for today. We missed it. It was a couple of weeks ago it happened, but we are pouring one out for the Batman himself, Kevin Conroy.
I have been reading comic books pretty much for most of my life. I think I've been reading roughly 30 years. And ever since that show first aired, that is my voice. Like when I'm reading a Batman comic book, the only voice I hear in my head is Kevin Conroy's.
I tend to agree. And then when you watch the other Batman cartoons that don't have Kevin Conroy's voice, you're kind of like, I don't know if I can watch this. You know?
I've had some where I thought were really good. What was his name? He was in Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. He did some Star Wars stuff. He's a voice actor who's done a lot of Batman, actually. I think he's probably going to be the guy who is going to be the Batman voice now that Kevin Conroy has passed. But he does a pretty good job, and I feel like a fool for not thinking of his name as I'm talking. I feel like I'm just trying to keep talking because maybe if I keep talking, the name will come to me.
Are you drinking anything right now?
See,
I am.
Yeah, because we didn't discuss what we were drinking before we jumped into this. But go ahead.
Okay, yeah, Jake, tell us what you're drinking.
I am actually, because it is Christmas time, and I don't know if I'm going to record again before Christmas, I'm having some eggnog. Eggnog with a little extra rum.
Rojan,
people actually drink eggnog?
Apparently it is a thing.
My family is huge eggnog fans. If my kids could, they'd have eggnog in the fridge year round.
I am, because also getting ready for Christmas. I busted out my traditional Michigan Christmas time cocktail, the Naughty Gnome.
What is the Naughty Gnome?
Oh, you don't remember that? I
don't.
Okay, so I found this in to start the story. Every time I go to the Henry Ford Museum or Greenfield Village, I will stop in their gift shop and usually drop like $100 on all their like local history books and stuff like that. So I found a book on the history of Vernors.
Yeah, now I remember.
Yeah, and one of the things that was contained in it was a section of Vernors cocktails. And this was listed as a festive holiday cocktail. So it is 1.5 ounces of rum. For this particular one, I'm using New Holland Distillery's freshwater rum. 2 dashes of Angostura bitters. You fill the rest of the cup with Vernors, and you have a delightful, just kind of pleasant cocktail. I don't know why I associate Vernors with Christmas, but I do.
Oh, because everybody bakes hams in it. That's what you do up in Michigan. You ever had a Vernors honey-baked ham?
Never had that.
I don't.
In fact, being from Michigan, I only associate Vernors with being sick.
That too. It is the official cure-all for anything that ails you.
Got us through COVID.
Yep. I don't do Vernors with my ham. I do root beer with my ham. And then
that sounds good.
Yeah. So I will do root beer, a shot of bourbon, and then like brown sugar. And then you kind of coat the ham in that syrup. and then throw it in the oven on like broil. And what happens is all the sugar in the root beer and the brown sugar caramelizes, and then you get that kind of like super sweet honey baked glaze.
Only other thing I've ever used Vernors for is a buddy of mine turned me onto a recipe for sloppy joes, where it's actually you brown your ground beef, you pour in 20 ounces of Vernors, and then like sweet chili sauce, and the Vernors kind of cooks down. It becomes a nice thick pasty, delicious sloppy joe mix.
There is something I never in a million years would have thought of.
It surprised me too. I remember I was with him when we were cooking it, and I'm like, "Really, is this going to turn out right?" And it did. It just magically did.
All right, Rojan, what are you drinking?
I am drinking the Rochester Mills, because it is the season, the Rochester Mills Oatmeal Raisin Milkshake Stout. This is left over from last year, raided from your basement, because I drank all of mine last year. And I was down there and I went, wow, you still have some of this left. This is coming with me.
I just saw somebody on Facebook post a picture of this year's.
And it looks phenomenal.
It does. So next week, my mission is I'm going to hit all my local haunts and see if I can find it. So the next time we record, we'll have them.
The 12 beers of Christmas.
God,
this year,
making me thirsty.
Oh, the Rochester Mill ones. Very rarely do I have a bad Rochester Mills stout, that like one of their milkshake stouts or whatever that I just don't like.
There's one dud in every one. Every year, there's always one that you look at it and you go, "Oh yeah, you."
Not this year though.
See, I don't know, because I don't recall all of them, but I know not last year, the year before, it was the King Cake one, and I didn't drink it. I made you drink it, and it was awful.
I think I liked it though, didn't I? I don't remember now.
No, you said it was vile.
You know, I don't remember. I want to say you're right, but I just can't tell anymore. To be honest with you, I can't remember, because I don't drink mini stouts anymore. I really don't even drink much beer anymore. I mean, full disclosure, once I switched over to using marijuana edibles, I was like, why am I drinking? So the only time I really drink is when I'm with you guys, or here and there socially in one way or another. So
because I'm
the only
an
thing
enabler.
that I will drink is the Rochester Mill stouts, because they're almost always good.
I wonder if I get them up here. I don't think I've ever looked for them.
So,
I don't. You know what? They might, because where you live is a big beer mecca for.
Oh yeah.
Not homebrew, but locally made brews and things like that, or artisanal brews. Pretty much from Traverse City, Michigan, all the way up to you. That whole stretch through there is just full of really neat, beer discoveries and things like that. So I can't, being that they're a Michigan company, I can't see why they wouldn't ship across the state,
And this is, you said Rochester?
Yeah, Rochester Mills. Rochester Mills Beer Company.
I'm writing that down right now. I'm going to look for that shit.
Yeah, I was actually going to say, there's a YouTuber I follow, and I would actually love to get on the podcast, and I might try reaching out to him. But Greg from Home, he's a guy who does like really like amazing cocktails, and he's also a gamer. So he live streams video games on Twitch. He did a tabletop RPG stream of Cyberpunk 2077. But he was doing a cocktail thing, and it was like historic cocktails, and it required a stout. So he was like, I'm going to use my favorite stouts, which come from Founders Brewery in Michigan. I was like, hey, I know those guys.
Founders does also make a good stout.
Yeah. But anyways, going back to Kevin Conroy.
Yes, Kevin Conroy.
I have to say that
was a long loop around.
It was a very long loop around. Batman the Animated Series came out, I think, right when I was like 14. So like perfect impressionable age for that show. And I had always kind of liked Batman, but that show became my favorite versions of everything Batman. The Batman the Animated Series Batman is by far my favorite Batman. All the villains are my favorite versions of the Batman villains. They got everything so right. They were able to make the villains menacing without making them too like just like caricature
Cartoony.
of themselves. So like you look at the portrayal of the Joker in Batman the animated series versus the portrayal of the Joker in the Dark Knight Return or the Dark Knight. Heath Ledger's Joker is basically a psychopath. Like there's no like the humor isn't even there really. Like there's no clown prince of crime. It's just he's a psychopath wearing face makeup. But the Joker that's portrayed in Batman the Animated Series is you still get that he's insane, but there's a method to the insanity.
Thank you, Mark Hamill.
Yeah, thank you, Mark Hamill. The Riddler, I think the Riddler in Batman the Animated Series is absolutely perfect because he's a villain just because he wants to prove that he's smarter than everybody else.
Hands down my favorite version of that character.
The Riddler in the Batman with Twilight guy, like, no, the Riddler's not the frickin' Zodiac killer. He's not a guy who's leaving body bags behind him. He is literally there just to prove he is the smartest guy in the room. And just Kevin Conroy made all that. And there's so many memorable episodes of the Batman the Animated Series that I don't know if I can like Batman as much knowing that Kevin Conroy isn't a part of it.
Well,
a quick callback, by the way. The name of the guy who I was thinking of was Jason O'Mara.
Okay.
That's all I got. just had a callback. I did look up the name.
No, see, I was going to say, here's the thing, is like you were talking about, I'm just going to keep talking until I remember it. That's not the way it works. You stop talking, you let somebody else talk, and then it's going to hit you like a brick falling from a third-story window.
Yeah, I want to cut in and say I finally figured out his name. Trying to wait for that right opening.
And then we're going to pour one more drink out for just today. The internet and TikTok specifically lost one of its first true celebrities. We are saying goodbye to Noodle the Pug. As of today, he was carried across the Rainbow Bridge to Valhalla, where he will join the Einherjar Jar in the mead halls of Odin. Every day for him is now a Bones Day. And for my co-host here, who had no idea who the hell Noodle the Pug was,
no idea.
It was something that I found during COVID lockdown. It's this guy. I don't know where he's from, but he had a 13-year-old pug named Noodles, and every morning he would get a video on TikTok and he would take his dog out of his bed and try and stand him up into a sitting position, and we would find out if that day Noodle had bones. If he didn't have bones, he would just fall over, and it was a no-bones day. And that meant everybody had the right to just stay in bed and take care of themselves and do self-care things. But if Noodle stood up, that meant it was a bones day. And, you had the courage to go out and do things and accomplish something because, you had the bones to do it. And as weird as that was just one of those things that during COVID lockdown, I was like, okay, I got to find out if it's bone day before I get out of bed. It was like, that was just part of my routine. And it came into the lexicon to where, like, my kids would check every morning with their teachers to see if it was a bones day, or their teachers would have it written on a board in the background of their Zoom calls. And, all the hip kids knew it. But, as sad as it is, he was
I didn't know about it.
Yeah, I didn't know anything about it. Well, then again, I came to TikTok late, so
same.
The only knowledge of TikTok I have is when John over aggressively shares TikTok videos to the group chat. That's probably my only connection. And
my language of friendship is leaving memes and TikTok videos in your DMs like a cat leaving a dead mouse on your pillow.
Oh, John loves me. He left me a TikTok.
Aw.
Yep, that's it. So, Kevin Conroy and Noodles, this one's for you. Ah, that is a mighty fine beverage.
That is a good beer.
Oh, you really should not chug eggnog.
Do you have the eggnog milk mustache now?
Oh, God. Yeah. Oh, it's
Okay.
everywhere.
You're dying, aren't you? You are actively dying right now.
Please tell me that if you have eggnog, you are at least drinking it out of the moose head eggnog glasses from National Lampoon's Christmas Vacation.
Oh, God. I've seen that movie more times than I can count. And every time I'm always hung up, that scene is like, I want those. I really got to have those.
Oh, you can get them out.
Those?
They make them, yeah. They're not even too expensive. I think you can get like a whole set of them for under $40.
Oh, I know what I'm buying after we're done instead of a Christmas present for my kids.
Oh, no. Somebody sent me something. I don't know if we talked about it yet, but somebody on Etsy makes a laser cut advent calendar that is the silhouette of Nakatomi Tower.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
And every day Hans Gruber falls one level closer to the ground. So that's definitely going to be on my TikTok or my internet purchases very soon, because it just isn't Christmas until I see Hans Gruber fall off the Nakatomi Plaza.
What was there? There's a new thing going around on social media where take a movie that isn't a Christmas movie and make it a Christmas movie and prove why it's a Christmas movie. So somebody took the one with the movie Seven and said Seven is a Christmas movie.
Yeah,
because
I saw that.
At the end of it, he gets a present. And what was the other part of it? He was anxious or surprised or something like that.
It's because it's got an overly religious message. One of the characters gets a gift, and everybody is anxious to find out what's inside.
Yes, that's it. And then there was somebody that one called it the human centipede. Was another one.
Oh no. I just got the notification from my kids' school on Friday that they have Holiday Spirit Week, and one of them is dress up as your favorite character from your favorite Christmas movie. And I'm like, dear God, somebody's dressing up as John McClane. Please tell me somebody's dressing up as John McClane.
I've seen that meme floating around where there's a little kid dressed as John McClane. I'm like, I can't talk. For Halloween, though, he's got this. It's just basically his kid looks like he's all beat up and he's got like a tank top on or something like that. That reminds me of those guys that dress up like Bruce Wayne's parents. Every time they see a Batman, they lay down on the ground and act like they were shot.
That is one of the most hilarious things I've ever seen at a con.
I've also seen people do Uncle Ben for Spider-Man.
Yep, I was going to say, sometimes you'll see them and you'll see occasionally an Uncle Ben.
And I'm just about to the right age where I can pull that off to make a great, like, low-effort cosplay.
You should be able to, you should do that. You'd have to shave your hair off, wouldn't you? No, not really.
No, I got that nice peppery gray going on.
You should do it.
Frequent listeners to the former Jake and Tom Conquer the World podcast will probably remember this story because I've told it several times. But Tom and I went to a convention about 4 or 5 years ago. And we'd see a cosplayer, and one of us would go up and take a picture. The other person would go up with them, whatever. And I don't know how it happened, but sometime around Friday afternoon, I started asking, Tom would go up to a cosplayer like a Galactus or whatever. And I would say, hey, Galactus, can I get a picture of you kicking my friend in the nuts? And 100% out of every single one that weekend, sure. And then they'd do swing their foot up, and Tom would make that grunting face as he's getting kicked in the nuts. And oh my God, that became the thing throughout the weekend. By the time Sunday rolled around, we walked up to like a random Deadpool and they're like, hey, are you the nuts guys?
Oh, that's great. Your reputation precedes you.
Because all the cosplayers hang out with each other. They tend to be a lot of them are a tight-knit group. And so, we made quite the impression that day.
Very
outstanding.
Nice. All right. Well, we're at a half an hour record time, so let's say we actually talk about Star Wars.
Okay. I will put up front that I will be on my absolute best behavior. So.
No, we want you. Give in to the hate. Give in to the dark side.
Nah, not really. I don't know. I just pay real close attention to what's going on behind the scenes. So
this is it. I give you permission to take the leash off. And
there's not. I mean, where do you want me to start? You want me to talk about my trip to Star Wars World down at Disneyland? Disney World?
Let's start with Andor, because that is by far the big centerpiece of the Star Wars universe right now.
All right, who wants to start?
I'll jump in first.
Yeah, you go. Right. Go ahead.
So we talking about our feelings of the show in general.
Yep.
So I want to go too long on this one, but so Rogue One comes out. We all saw it. I don't know how everyone else felt about it. I liked it.
Liked it.
Didn't love it. It wasn't my favorite. It's a favorite for a lot of people.
But it's up there, but it is not my favorite. But it's up there. And
it had a really good ending. I love that the most. That Vader scene is still probably one of my favorite Star Wars scenes in general.
Hallway monitor of the year.
Oh yeah, but ultimately, the thing about that movie, especially my feelings about it, and when this show was announced, was wow, they made this really neat story about all these fascinating characters. And they're making a spin-off on the most boring member of the entire cast. I had
100% agree.
Very low expectations going into this show. And I'm happy to say that they well exceeded them. I really enjoyed this show. But still, the most boring character in the entire show is the name of the show with Andor. That's my first thoughts on it.
Agreed.
Well, and you look at it, he had almost the smallest part in the show. Like, to the point where there are secondary actors that I believe had more screen time than he did. He was very much...
I don't doubt that.
It was very much that while his name was on the show, this wasn't his story. This is the story of the rebellion and like the very early stages of it. Which, full disclosure, this is the Star Wars show I have been waiting for since high school. Since I first discovered the expanded universe books and first found out that, like, hey, Star Wars stuff happened after the original trilogy, and then finding this super rich world. And that was right about the time I found the Star Wars role-playing game, which went further to just fleshing out all the amazing things of Star Wars. But this is always a period that I wanted to know more about, but during the George Lucas eras was expressly forbidden from anyone writing about. From the Star Wars role-playing game, from the expanded universe, there was a list you were given of things you were not allowed to write about. You were not allowed to write about how the Force works. You were not allowed to write about anything with the Clone Wars. Like, you could mention it, but you could not create a canon for the Clone Wars because George Lucas knew he wanted to do something with it. You were not allowed to write about anything about the rebellion before A New Hope. Because, again, that was an era of time George Lucas wanted specifically to have the last say on. Everything else was fair game. And to the credit of a lot of writers, the reason we know what an Ithorian is because the Star Wars role-playing game gave that a name, or gave that a backstory. The reason we know Bibba Fortuna is a Twi'lek is because the Star Wars role-playing game gave his race a name and gave his race a backstory. All these super huge things of Star Wars lore that we just take for granted now didn't exist until like the late 80s, early 90s. And I love this part of the Star Wars timeline. I love the early Rebellion era. I love Rogue One was possibly my favorite Star Wars movie outside of A New Hope, because it just got that aesthetic of like the lived in universe and this military uprising on the fringes of the galaxy trying to fight the evil empire. And that's the stories I got into when I got into Star Wars. I really could care less about the Jedi. I really could care less about the Luke Skywalker family. Like, I want to know about the normal people who live in the Star Wars universe and have to live in the Star Wars universe. So seeing the planet Ferrix, a planet where it's like, yeah, this is a place where they just break down starships because, you know, there was a giant war and tons of starships. This is a world where normal people live, where it isn't just the desert people of Tatooine. It isn't the like super fancy shiny Naboo. These are working class people who get up every day to an anvil announcing the changes of the shifts. So that I'm very, very happy with this show. And that was me going on for like 10 minutes. But does anybody else have anything to say?
I guess it's my turn, which makes it easier because exactly like Jake, when they announced Andor, I'm like, why? I'm like, this is Disney giving us something that we don't want or don't care about, again, whatever. But as I have said many times on this show, we are Star Wars whores and we'll watch anything Star Wars, though I still just don't really care about the Bad Batch. Whatever. I'm weird. I know. I get it. Mm-hmm. But so
I'm still
okay when it comes up.
I was going to say, I'm still boycotting Tales of the Jedi because when I heard Tales of the Jedi,
good.
But there is already a thing in the Star Wars universe with the name Tales of the Jedi. And it's
but was that pre-Disney?
Yeah, that was pre-Disney.
It didn't happen.
It was the Dark Horse comic series from like 10,000 years before A New Hope and told like the very earliest stories of the Jedi and the Sith. And it was so good. So when I heard Tales of the Jedi, I'm like, oh my God, we're going to get into Tales of the Jedi. Oh, it's just an anthology series about Ahsoka Tano and Yoda and all them. Fuck. Sorry, that was me interrupting.
I don't even remember where I was. Anyways, yeah, so I was like, this isn't really a movie or a show that I really care about or I could give a shit about, but all right, whatever. And then I saw some scenes from it and stuff, and I'm like, okay, this maybe I'm interested. So finally I watched it, and like everybody else, I was like, my God, this show is just taking forever. And then I realized, I read, I should say, that the show works in 3-episode clusters. I think there was only one episode that didn't fit into a cluster. And every the show ramps from beginning all the way up through episode 3, blah, blah, then the next cycle in the series starts. But this, like you said, John, is the show that I've been waiting for my whole life. This is the first real mature, in my opinion, iteration of a Star Wars story there is yet. And a lot of people didn't like it. It took me a little bit to realize what was going on. We have been fed like the Boba Fett show. It is what it was. But all of the Star Wars stuff we've seen thus far is very popcorny, gunfights, lightsaber battles, whatever you want to call it. This is what that we've been given. So when a show comes along that doesn't deal with just the Jedi, and you're not seeing stormtroopers in every episode, and the Empire that's in the show has a very different presence and is being portrayed in a very different way. There were all of these different things that were different than Star Wars we've been given thus far. So when we got it, it took me a little bit to kind of switch gears, and then I realized, for myself at least, I'm like, this is the kind of Star Wars show that I've always wanted, or a movie that I've always wanted, because as we grew up, and I'm older than you guys, I remember seeing the first episode 1 at Fairlane Mall, which nobody knows about that listens far away. But anyways, so for a while, all I had were the books that are now Star Wars Legends. They're no longer canon. I had all that stuff. So when the Star Wars came along, like even with the prequels, Star Wars didn't mature with us. They still kept it at that lower level for younger people or what have you. And I'm like, well, it's Star Wars, so it is what it is. Andor comes along, and this is a very maturely written show, from the cinematography, the story, the way that the story is told with the episode arcs, the way that they are, the ground level oppression that you get. Like, this really fleshes out that the Empire aren't just cannon fodder to be mowed down stormtroopers. You know, there's actually like an SS secret police kind of thing here with operatives and information gathering and all this stuff. And then you see the oppression on the planets and stuff. Like this is a very different Star Wars story that I very much enjoyed. Now, as to what you were talking about, how Andor really is like the most non-important character in the show, I think that was done on purpose because we've all, like, with the prequels, it's like, well, we all know what's going to happen. We all know where they're going. Like, there no time during the prequels were you ever worried that Anakin or Obi-Wan Kenobi were going to die because you knew it was coming, you know? Whereas with this show, go ahead.
I was going to say, going back to Rogue One, like, one of my favorite things from Rogue One was all the memes that would come out that, like, leaked images from the Rogue One sequel, and it's just A New Hope.
Yeah.
Like that joke. We knew going into it what happens next.
So did anybody, when they finished up watching Rogue One, immediately watch A New Hope?
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
I did that, and it really did enhance the experience.
Yeah. So with this show, what they've done a really good job is if they made the character, the show it's rotating around Andor's life and the things that he's involved with, the things that are happening, but it does a really good job of making you not care so much about Andor himself, but it takes all of these outside supporting characters and it really builds on them. So you know that Andor is going to live, so they don't really put him in a lot of situations where his life is in danger for the most part, I've noticed. But the other characters, they're like, well, is this person going to die? This person's probably going to die. Like this whole thing with Luthen being,
Luthen.
You know, a Jedi. Luthen. I'm sorry, Luthen. With Luthen, I have popcorn in my mouth, so it's my tongue's all swollen from the salt. But anyways, with Luthen being a Jedi, there's this big thing going on there. As if he is a Jedi. Was he a Jedi? Is he Sith? What's going on? Because for a while, like, you saw this stuff in the background, little hints here and there, and then they just keep on going. And like, they're doing a really good job of story writing, of keeping everybody guessing and stuff. And then the other characters that are around it, they've made them more important in the show than Andor himself is. And I don't mind. I don't care. You know, and even if he is a Jedi or a Sith or whatever, I don't mind it because like we said, we don't need to have Jedi in every movie or every show and stuff like that. But this is a different interpretation of it.
And what I like,
this is where the debate starts.
I was gonna say, what I like is it's showing that this is not the Jedi. Like, this is not, oh, okay, well, it's the constant battle between the Empire and the Emperor and the Jedi, the Sith and the Jedi. Like, no, we are finally just seeing normal people who have reached their limit, who have been oppressed to the point where rebellion is their only option. And that it's a more relatable character. These are not people with superpowers. These are not people with magic laser swords. These are just people fighting back with, you know, the bricked remains of a beloved member of the city council.
Yeah,
who got really to be involved in that final fight.
She died doing what she loved, beating fascists in the face.
So we got to wait 2 more years before we get episodes again.
Yeah, I guess they're filming right now, though. So,
yeah.
Who knows?
So, I got to agree with both of you. Like, I did not have high expectations going into this. I am not, or I was going to say, I am the dissenting opinion that I actually liked Andor as a character. But my only expectation going into this show was I desperately wanted to find out how he got K2SO, because, you know, anything to keep Alan Tudyk still working.
I kept really expecting that was going to be like the last thing that happens in the show.
Right. And then, but it didn't. For
season 2.
It didn't, and I'm still not disappointed.
No, because you know what's going to happen. You know that the little mop bucket cute droid is going to be uploaded into K, because B2SO, K2SO.
Oh, so, yeah. But yeah, going back to like the mature themes of this show, very like from the very beginning, in one of the first episodes, we get the absolute first showing of underwear in the Star Wars universe, which is a big deal because George Lucas was firm that underwear didn't exist in the Star Wars universe, and that was why Carrie Fisher wasn't allowed to wear a bra in A New Hope.
Yep.
So we got that.
So not a hard rule, just a dirty old man.
Just a dirty old man.
Well, there was a topless Twi'lek in Jabba's palace in Return of the Jedi.
She wasn't topless.
For a second.
I was gonna say she was not topless. She had a bikini top on, but we're digressing.
We'll save that argument for another time. But go ahead. Because I will come with visual proof.
Like we got to see.
Poor choice of words.
But like we got to see the methods, like how far the Empire was willing to go, like of not just that implied torture, but we actually got to see torture happening. We got to see that scene where the one worker has the stroke, and it's like, there's nothing we can do. We're just going to put him down. Like the idea of euthanasia in Star Wars was something we've never seen before. So there is a lot of high concept, mature themes going on in this. And it's, I love it. Like, sure, make Star Wars media for the kids. 'Cause I'm going to be real honest. I like most of that stuff too, but this, like, give me adult themed Star Wars that is high concept, and I'm going to love that too.
So this is where I worry a little bit. So the show's doing well. People are talking about it. It's got a really lot of positive buzz. A lot of people swearing up and down it's the best thing since the original trilogy, which is great. I worry that Disney will learn the wrong lesson in this. Mm-hmm. You know, I'm afraid.
I agree with you.
I'm worried that they're going to be like, okay, cool. Now everything is going to be dark and gritty.
I was going to say, and now we get Star Wars directed by Quentin Tarantino.
Yeah,
because he wanted to do a Star Wars movie forever.
Well, he was pushing Star Trek for a while.
Yeah, he's pushing Star Trek.
Okay, Star Trek. Yeah. I knew it was. He wanted to do something sci-fi. I thought it was Star Wars, but yeah.
No, it was Trek. But I don't mind if they do that though. I don't. You know what? It's not even. It's the writing. Like Boba Fett was horrible writing. Boba Fett was nothing but member berries. Remember member berries from South Park?
Oh yeah, I remember.
Yeah, remember Star Wars? But that's all Boba Fett really was. It was just lots of shout outs. The story was kind of crappy. You know, it was just not written very well at all. And, you know, like the best episodes of it were the one where the Mandalorian was in the episode. So
right.
So at this point, like people are like, all right, you know, what now? What are you going to do? You know, whatever. It's kind of one of those situations. But Andor also did catch a lot of hate. A lot of people didn't like it. And I was one of the initial haters because I'm like, man, this is just taking forever. And I'm glad I waited it out.
I was the same way until the third episode. And then
after third episode, I'm like, all right, I think this is cool. You know, then the train heist one or the spaceship heist, I'm like, all right, where's this one going? But again, you didn't care so much about Andor in the show. You care about the characters he runs into and he interacts with and the world that's going on around him. More, he's just a passenger like us on this voyage. You know, all he wants to do is survive and get by or whatever up until at the very end of this last episode where he kind of threw the gun down and said either kill me or take me in. You know, that was the first time he really like said, okay, I want to be a part of this. But again, we didn't really care a whole lot about Andor very much. You know, it was kind of like, well, what's going to happen next with this person or with that person, you know? And as long as Star Wars or Disney, I should say, starts doing better writing on things. But the problem is I don't know if I want to go into this. They released a statement a little while ago saying, hey, we messed up on the last 3 movies. We rushed them far too fast. They thought that rather the part of the problem was that people didn't like deep fake characters or actors playing other characters. And I didn't mind Han Solo. And as me and John were talking about before, the guy who played Lando Calrissian was awesome. We all want him to have a show.
Oh, yeah. Donald Glover. He can do all the Lando.
Yeah.
And that's been rumored for a while, but unfortunately, Kathleen Kennedy, which I don't mean to like call her out by name, but she has this really bad habit of announcing shit, get everyone excited about a thing, and then not give us that thing. Something happens. I think they come up with an idea. They go, all right, Kathleen, go out and run with it. And then it gets everyone hyped up. And then they sit down and go, okay, now how are we going to do this? Oh, that isn't going to work.
My eye is visibly twitching because I'm still fucking pissed off about them shelving Rogue Squadron.
Yeah.
Oh, Rogue Squadron.
Well, that's where I was going with this. Disney panicked. They rushed the last three movies because they wanted to get their shareholders and people that bought in, they wanted to get them a return on their investments. So they went for the fast cash route or whatever, and now it's bitten them in the ass. And,
and this is a good segue into
Star Wars Land.
Well, no, this is a good segue into
the Bob Iger thing.
Very quickly, them shit canning the previous CEO and Bob Iger being brought back. And specifically, what I don't even remember who the previous CEO was, related to Disney
Chapek.
Plus.
Sorry.
What's that?
Chapek, Bob Chapek.
Bob Chapek.
Yep.
Bob Chapek was.
Couldn't say it.
Yeah, Bob Chapek. He was the guy behind, or like he was the big push behind Disney Plus, and he sold it to the shareholders that, you know, after a year or two, we're just going to be rolling in the money from it. And while they got the views, streaming will never be the revenue generator that movies are. Like, it's just never going to happen. You're never going to have a streaming service that will put up numbers like an Avengers movie making $1 billion at the box office.
And that's why Disney over at the Marvel corner has the right idea with their TV stuff, is whether you love or hate the movies that are coming out, they're working in tandem with them really good.
Exactly.
They're making these shows to get you to introduce a new character, so then you get excited for seeing the next movie that has that character in it. They've really somehow managed to get this great cohesive thing working that I wish Star Wars, who is again same fucking parent company, they can't figure out to copy themselves.
So yeah, they're doing a DC Warner Brothers thing right now is what they're doing.
Well, but like when Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. came out, at first, it was originally intended to be like, this is a weekly...
That felt like the prototype to what we got now.
Well, it was originally intended to be like, hey, this is basically just a monthly a weekly hour commercial to get you to go see the movies. But then there was a big shakeup between the people running the television branch and the people running the movie branch, specifically Joss Whedon, physically distanced himself, and when he was in charge of the basically the Avengers movies and all that, he got pissed off at the show and said, no, like, as far as we're concerned in the movies, we're not acknowledging the show ever existed. And after like basically that first season of Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., it became its own thing and no longer tied back to the Marvel universe.
Or if it tried to, it would be very vague.
Yeah, very
And a
vague.
lot of people were like, well, then why am I going to bother watching this?
Exactly, and that's what eventually killed it. Well, that and their attempt to do the Inhumans, but that's a whole nother story. And that's what Marvel is kind of doing now, where the streaming shows are basically just a way to keep you hyped about the Marvel universe between the releases of movies. Now, Star Wars. Yeah, with Star Wars.
Movies yet.
Yeah,
that's where I was going, is they panicked and pulled back.
But
now they're trying to reevaluate everything that they're doing.
Mm-hmm.
And they're like, well, we're not going to get another chance at this. Meanwhile, the shows on the streaming service, for the most part, they're not bad.
Well, I was going to say,
Boba Fett, I didn't like it, but hey, I watched it. I'm paying for it, so I'll
had
watch
fun
it.
with it.
So with the exception of Boba Fett, almost all the Star Wars media on Disney Plus has really been good, to the point where it's the opposite of the Marvel. Like the Marvel, the the shows are keeping you interested for the movies, but I think with Star Wars, it's really become that the shows are the main attraction. And
Right.
honestly,
and they have half the budget that the movies do.
right. And honestly, the shows are a better way to tell a more compelling Star Wars story than a movie.
Are either one of you guys wrestling fans?
No.
Either. Not important. Not important
Right.
question. So in wrestling, a lot of times what they'll do is they'll have like a WWE, or back when it was WWF, they would own other smaller wrestling companies for them to kind of build up talent. And then when they would have someone who, like the Big Show, gets hurt or whatever, and he's coming back, but he's not quite ready to go on the main stage, he would go and kind of go do this little smaller minor leagues. Other sports do this too, I guess.
Well,
but that's, to me, the way that they should treat the TV stuff or the streaming stuff.
Mhm.
They should use that as a test audience. Like, hey, let's do, a 2-hour special with this random Star Wars character. But hey, everyone loved it. Now let's do a movie based on it.
Well, and
Well, here's the thing.
I don't think Star Wars.
Disney-
Okay. One of us has got to choose to go.
Go.
I think Star Wars, you don't even have to lend itself. I don't think it works as well character driven like the Marvel movies do. I think Star Wars works better for a story. Like, decide a story you want to tell and then pick the media that's best to tell the story.
Well, yeah, but you also got to consider the people that are running the streaming side of Disney as opposed to the people that are running the movie side of Disney. Like, the guys that are running the streaming side of Disney are genuine Star Wars fans.
you've
I mean,
got-
how one of them was groomed by George Lucas. So
That
You
is
know.
a major difference between the two mediums.
yeah,
Is
it's
it's the people who work on the TV shows or the streaming shows, it's like
They
a
have passion for it.
Yeah, it's something
Yeah.
that they feel very strongly about. Where a lot of times movie directors like, yeah, I think I've seen a couple of the movies.
well, you've got Ryan Johnson who said, you've got all this established plot, you've got these things. Fuck that shit. I'm going to do what I want to do because it's my movie.
During the movies, none of the writers from the movies communicated with one another.
Mhm.
There was no communication for the writers of any of the movies. And Abrams was like, here is a good outline and additional footage that I didn't use for the direction of the movies. So he was like, that's it. My hands are washed. Hopefully, we're putting intelligent people here to take care of it. And, we all know what happened from there. But
Right.
one of the things is that each movie was treated as its own entity with no real set direction. And the writers were just like, okay, well, let's go this way. Let's go that way.
And
Let's
that's how
do
we got
this.
space horses running on top of a Star Destroyer. All right, OND listeners, we're going to pause the conversation here and break this up into part 1. We'll be back in a week or two with part 2 so you can hear the rest of the discussion. Until then, this is John Patrick, the Master Control Program, saying...
End of line.
Over? Did you say over? Nothing is over until we decide it is. Was it over when the Germans bombed Pearl Harbor? Hell no!
German? Forget it, he's rolling.
It ain't over now.
So, what's the plan?
Take car, go to Mum's, kill Phil, grab Liz, go to the Winchester, have a nice cold pint, and wait for all this to blow over.
Might as well write him off. Let's close up the bridge. Let's get out of here. Close it up. Lights out.
Where are you headed, cowboy?
Nowhere special.
Nowhere special. I always wanted to go there.
We're good, streaky! Yeah!
All right, move on. Nothing to see here. Please disperse. Nothing to see here, please.